Chew Kee Store Museum. This building was constructed by Chinese immigrant laborers in the 1850s using a technique similar to adobe called rammed earth. Its steep roof and porch have been recently rebuilt, modeled after the original construction. The Chew Kee Store was once part of a vibrant Chinese community that developed in the west part of Fiddletown during the Gold Rush. The town's commercial center was to the east. By 1860, at least 1/3 of Fiddletown's population was Chinese. The Chew Kee Store is unique and rare in that everything inside belonged to its Chinese residents, covering the years from the early 1850s until 1965. Let's enter the main room. Watch your step. This store was established as a Chinese herbal pharmacy by Dr. Yi Feng Chung, who left his village in southeast China to seek opportunities and to attend to the health needs of the growing Chinese community in Gold Rush, California. Dr. Yi Feng imported 150 medicinal herbs stored in these drawers. He may have also grown herbs, winnowing them in baskets. The herbs included all parts of a plant, from the roots to the flowers. The herb doctor treated maladies such as fever, abdominal and respiratory problems, infections, and acute pain, and applying remedies developed over 5,000 years in China. Treatments included angelica root for pain, ginger for stomach ailments, and cut powder for knife wounds. Dr. Yi Feng diagnosed a customer's illness or injury using such methods as examining the patient's tongue and pulse. Afterwards, he would select a combination of herbs, placing them in a small paper prescription packet. Boiled in water, the herbs became a bitter but curative tea. At the store altar, offerings and appeals were made to deities representing fortune, prosperity, and longevity. The herbalist, Dr. Yi, went on to establish stores in Sacramento and Virginia City. In 1884, a merchant known as Chew Kee took over the store, turning it into a grocery store that sold cigars, whiskey, and opium, which was legal until 1909. Bulk staples were also sold, such as rice, flour, and tapioca. These were stored in large glazed brown stoneware jars, while tea came in beautiful decorated boxes. Chew Kee continued to sell medicine, reusing bottles and other containers. He also furnished supplies for gambling, a popular diversion for Chinese as well as others. Chew Kee was a shareholder in the gambling hall across the street, and there was much activity between these two buildings. Around 1886, Chew Kee and his wife, Sai Choi, agreed to take care of a young boy whose parents had left Fiddletown to return to China. The boy, Fong Chow Yao, grew up in Fiddletown and became known as Jimmy Chow. He attended the Fiddletown schoolhouse as the only Chinese child and won respect with the local boys, making lifelong friends with many. When Chew Kee died in 1913, he left his property to Jimmy, his adopted son. Jimmy spent most of his life in Fiddletown, becoming an expert carpenter and butcher. He did not use the building as a store, but kept the possessions of Dr. Yi Feng and Chew Kee, adding his own personal objects. Jimmy died in 1965, the town's last Chinese resident. He was loved by the Fiddletown community and is the only Chinese person buried in the public cemetery. Besides being a place of business and a place for the Chinese community to gather, this was also a home for its residents. The banner urges harmonious relations between the Chinese and Westerners. Below, a small window in the door allowed the occupants to see if customers had come. Notice the red paper strips over the doorway, perforated with holes for only good spirits to enter. Let's step into the private quarters. Look at the wooden slats on the floor. In the days before air conditioning, they provided needed air circulation. The bedroom is the first room off the narrow hall. Newspapers on the walls were used for insulation. Note that the bed is a single hard board with a traditional Chinese pillow, not at all comfortable for us today. Next to the adult bed is a child's bed where Jimmy once slept. As Jimmy aged, he developed painful arthritis. He used these crutches to walk. Here, across the hall, is the office where the herb doctor and later Chew Kee prepared bills for customers using the abacus for calculations. The rubber stamps, or chops, were used to make lottery tickets for the gambling house across the street. The bed was for visitors passing through town, not examinations. The Chew Kee building originally ended here. Its walls are 2 feet thick, constructed by ramming earth into forms. This keeps the building cool in the summer, but makes it cold in the winter. Marble for the threshold came from a nearby quarry, a few miles west of Fiddletown. Additional rooms for cooking were a necessity for Chew Kee and his wife now that they had a child. The first of 2 kitchens features a sink, cast iron stove, and a food safe for storing perishable food. Implements for Chinese cooking included cleavers and cutting boards for chopping vegetables and meat. Everything here was handmade. The cutting board is actually a section from a log. This second kitchen has a built-in wok for cooking Chinese stir-fry. Chew Kee and Sai Choi also prepared food for the Chinese community in a larger wok. These carpentry tools belonged to Jimmy Chow. As the child Jimmy grew, he needed a larger bed and larger quarters, so this addition was built in the late 1890s. Water for the residents came from a well beneath this platform. Toilet facilities consisted of an outhouse. Life was not easy then. Everything we see in this building was part of the lives of its Chinese occupants during their more than 100 years of residency. The preservation of the Chew Kee Store provides us with this authentic glimpse of Chinese life and culture transplanted to newly settled California. As we exit the Chew Kee Store, look across the street to see what remains from Fiddletown's Chinese section, once filled with stores, boarding houses, places for eating and entertainment. The Chinese Gambling Hall and the Chinese General Store are 2 other Chinese establishments from Gold Rush, California that are still standing. Along with the Chew Kee Museum, they give testimony to the Chinese immigrants who lived and worked here. The Fiddletown Preservation Society aims to preserve and share the Chinese legacy exemplified in these 3 buildings. With continuing public support, that legacy will live on. Thank you for visiting the Chew Kee Store, Museum, and Fiddletown.